Shock exit, a second devastating IVF mix-up caught in the crosshairs, Aussies who are just desperate to be parents. So as calls for tighter regulation intensify, has the fertility industry become a wild west that needs to be brought to order?
I just can't imagine the distress they're going through. One of the things that they've probably thought about already is whether they want to keep the child.
Michael Knapp, the CEO of Monash IVF, today sensationally quitting, just days after the fertility treatment giant admitted to an embryo transfer mix-up at its lab in Melbourne that led to a woman being impregnated with the wrong embryo, her own instead of her partner's.
It's horrifying to me that this could happen. Horrifying.
It beggars belief that now this is the second error in as many months.
In April, the $27 million company revealing it had mixed up the transfer of embryos at its Brisbane clinic in 2023, which caused a woman to unknowingly give birth to another patient's baby.
I hope that alarm bells are going off within the industry.
Monash IVF blamed the mistake on human error, the company insisting it was confident the incident was isolated.
I've been round this game for a long time. That's the first time I'd ever heard of anything like that happening in Australia.
More than 100,000 IVF treatment cycles take place in Australia each year.
Extraordinary that there is a second one after the first. Different lab, different state, same IVF clinic, deeply concerning.
It's a nightmare Anastasia Gunn knows all too well. Her 3 sons conceived through donor sperm at the Queensland Fertility Group between 2006 and 2014. Anastasia alleges DNA testing shows their eldest is not biologically related to his brothers.
We need nationally consistent regulation. We've got 8 different systems, we should have one.
Now, Anastasia is speaking out, pushing for clinics to be required to offer DNA testing to patients who ask for it, as she joins the growing calls for urgent national regulation of the fertility sector.
Families ought to be protected in this process. The damage could be immense and life-changing. You can't put a figure on it.
And Anastasia, who saw in that story, is with us now. Anastasia, what a heart-wrenching moment to receive the DNA results that your eldest had different DNA to his brothers. What was that like?
I was at work, I started shaking uncontrollably, went freezing cold. One of the doctors that I was working with said to me, "Oh, you look terrible, you've gone into shock," wrapped me in hot blankets. Wow. And I rang my partner crying hysterically. It was one of the worst days of my life.
Oh, Anastasia, just how has that news affected your family?
It's completely destroyed our family narrative. So I'm the biological mother of our eldest child, and then when we decided to have more children, we very explicitly stated that we wanted to use the same donor to have more children, and that my partner would be the birth mum. And then our third child was meant to be a beautiful mix of our entire family, where I was carrying her embryo, and so it was a combination of all of us. And that was the story that we raised our boys with, that they shared blood and could see each other in themselves, which is incredibly important for a lot of donor-conceived people. And our belief about what our family was that day was completely destroyed.
Is that the kind of thing you can repair over time, or is that just a wound that can't heal?
I don't know that our family will ever recover from the trauma of what has happened to us, because that was followed through by a complete lack of support. At the time that it occurred, there was no legislation in Queensland for the IVF industry, and that essentially the state was just full of cowboys doing whatever they wanted. So I think that really has compounded the trauma, the fight that we had to get any degree of support or help.
We're told again and again, Anastasia, that these mistakes are incredibly rare. Do you believe that?
No, I do not. And the Queensland Health Ombudsman investigation found a multitude of problems in Queensland that I believe reflect problems across the entire country. If you read the investigation, Provider E is named in that investigation. The results were released last year. They did an audit of all the donor semen ampules that were frozen up until the year 2020. And of those ampules, 99.8% are at medium or high risk of misidentification of the contents. So People have been going to the clinic trusting that the right thing is being used for their treatment, with a 99.8% chance that something may be wrong with what's in the ampule. I don't think any of us consented to that. That is not a valid medical consent. We certainly never thought that our children did not share a father. We only tested them because of medical reasons. So how many other people are there walking around believing that their children have one set of biological and medical history when in fact that's not correct whatsoever?
Anastasia, sorry again to hear what you've been through. Thank you so much for sharing your story though.
Thank you for having me on.
Just before we leave that story, statements from Monash IVF and the Queensland Fertility Group are available on our website if you would like to consult.